Desde que era pequeña siempre soñaba con hablar español perfectamente. Escuchaba siempre a mi mamá hablar con mi abuela y quería saber cómo comunicarme en su lengua materna. Un día tuve un sueño de que mágicamente me aprendería el español y diría a mi abuela: "Hola abuela, por fin hablo español". Y bueno, eso realmente sucedió, pero no por casualidad ni en un momento aleatorio, sino por muchos años de practicar, estudiar y dedicarme a la lengua española. Y no empecé a aprender hasta que tenía 19 años. Hola y bienvenidos. My name is Kristen. I'm a writer, a Spanish teacher, and a lover of all things Spanish language and culture. If you're interested in learning Spanish, here are a few tips that really helped me learn Spanish as an adult. As you probably know, the best time to learn a new language is while you're still young and your mind is just a sponge that takes up everything that it's given. Well, when you're an adult, it's not as easy as that, so it's going to be a lot trickier for you to actually retain the information you're learning when you're learning a new language, and it takes even more effort to be able to have confidence to communicate that language. It's all about your dedication to the language, so my first tip to learn a new language is number one, make sure you're passionate about that language and culture. If you're not passionate about the language or the culture, it's going to be really hard for you to stay motivated to keep up with it, especially if it's a really hard language to learn. If you're an English speaker, it's going to be really difficult for you to continue on with that journey during the toughest parts. I chose Spanish because I really wanted to connect with my culture and Spanish-speaking family. I grew up with a mom who speaks fluent Spanish and a dad who only speaks English, and my first language was English. It wasn't until college that I started taking introductory Spanish classes that I really started to learn and acquire the language. I started college at the novice mid-level and ended college at the advanced high level. So when I first entered college, I had to take a language test, specifically for native Spanish speakers, which in my case, I felt like I was half native speaker, half not, because I grew up with it, but I didn't speak it. I took an oral test to see my level. I want to say the professor was asking me very general questions in Spanish. I had kind of an understanding of what was happening, but the professor said that I had holes in my Spanish vocabulary, meaning I kind of knew how to communicate and had the confidence to do so, but I had a lot of issues with my vocabulary and my grammar. So that's why I actually started in Spanish 102 and made my way all the way to a Spanish major. When I began these classes from the level 102 and beyond, the most important thing was comprehensible input. I remember when I was in college, we had a lot of comprehensible input through the form of videos. The professor would describe scenery. So he would put up a picture of, let's say, a park, and he would say things like, hay árboles, hay gente, esa gente lleva suéteres blancos, things like that. He would describe a lot of different pictures and scenery and videos, and as we advanced in classes, the explanations would get a lot more detailed. So at the novice level, we started with comprehensible input in the form of very simple videos and shows. And one of the shows I want to talk about is called Sol y Viento. It's an educational telenovela that if you took Spanish in college in the US, you might be familiar with.
¡Un remolino! Me encantan los remolinos.
Lo compré ahí, me pareció bonito.
What the hell?
Sol y Viento is a great example of comprehensible input for the mid-novice level. It presents Spanish in a way that's easy and slow-paced while still giving you vocabulary that's a bit above your level. When I first started watching that show, I probably understood like 50% of what was going on, and the rest really flew right over my head. But the important thing is that you understand the idea of what's happening more so than every single word. My classes in college really focused on vocabulary in action. So as we continued with our learning, we did a lot of describing pictures, interviewing our classmates, audio blogs and audio recordings, a lot of presentations, and in many classes we weren't even allowed to speak English or we would lose points. Another great way of getting comprehensible input in Spanish is through social media. YouTube channels like Spanish After Hours are really great. And there's also Instagram pages like Spanish with Vicky, both of which I'll include down below. Pages like that are really great because you don't even feel like you're learning Spanish if what they're talking about is super interesting, chill, laid back, or fun. So the most important thing is really being pushed out of your comfort zone to speak the language and to have no fear if you make any mistakes. One thing about language that my professor taught me that really stuck with me is that language acquisition comes out of necessity. So being put in situations where you really need to use that language and you can't rely on your native language anymore is when you're going to start to acquire the language. So how do you do this? This comes with putting yourself in situations where you actually can speak the language without any fear of how you might sound. So this can be done by chatting with friends who speak Spanish. You could also use platforms like Talk Abroad or italki, which I did use in college as well. When I first started my Spanish classes in college and had to record myself doing homework assignments, a lot of the times my accent wasn't good, my vocabulary was off, and so was my grammar. But the most important thing is I had the confidence to keep going, and even if I made mistakes, I really wasn't getting in trouble for the mistakes I was making. You would more so get in trouble for if you were to speak English. So that's why please take that tip into your own life. The most important thing when learning a new language is just to keep speaking it, just keep practicing it, and please just resist the urge to revert back to English. Another thing that really helped my Spanish was studying abroad. I'm so grateful to have had the opportunity to travel to Spain for an entire semester where I took all Spanish courses and was fully immersed in the Spanish culture. And if you're in college and want to study abroad, I would highly recommend going to an area where there aren't many expats or tourists. That way you'll really be able to immerse in the Spanish language. I had the privilege of studying abroad in a smaller town outside of Madrid called Alcalá de Henares. It was actually the birthplace of Miguel de Cervantes, who wrote El Don Quixote de la Mancha. That's something that we're going to get into in another video. And this town is mainly made up of university students and older people. So a lot of the times I was interacting with older generations who spoke no English, and I had a really good experience of practicing my Spanish and also connecting with that local community. Studying abroad was an experience that completely changed my life. It was a full language immersion. So once I was out of study abroad, I had gone from the intermediate mid-level to the advanced high level. So my final takeaways would be input, immersion, have fun, and just go all in. Remember, language is really about having fun, and it's not going to be fun if you're putting so much pressure on how you sound or if something will come out wrong. Remember, mistakes are part of the learning process, and if you don't make those mistakes, then you'll never grow. With Spanish especially, a lot of people are worried about their accent and how they sound when they speak it, not wanting to sound too gringo or americanizado, but that's something that's inevitable and not the main focus of your language journey. Our main goal is to communicate. As we practice and build our confidence, that's when the accent will come. So please do not worry about your accent right now. What's most important is that you get comfortable speaking. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, be sure to comment down below, and I'll see you in the next video.